So guys, welcome back to New Collar Entertainment.
I don't think it's on.
This is Erich.
Nope.
And that's Matt.
Nope. It says we're waiting.
Oh.
Nope. Now we're good.
And that's Matt.
Nope. It says we're waiting.
Yep. Nope. And we're here to review Iron Claw.
Because it's Squeegee Subject Wednesday-ish thingy supplement.
So I don't. So I haven't watched the past couple streams, but we had to push back last Wednesday. Oh, this is Juice, by the way. We had to reschedule last Wednesday's stream to Friday because I got backed up at the shop. Gotta make that money. So we watched the movie on Friday, and we had, amongst some other conversations during watching the movie, it got a little late for us, and it was just late in general on Friday. Matt usually gets out of work late on Fridays.
Not late, like
not late. I mean, it's still
like
late.
6.
How do you got out later?
On Fridays, no.
Never mind. Anyway, I'm sorry. So amongst other discussions, it got kind of late for us. We were tired after watching the movie, and I suggested we postpone the review to today, Tuesday, because Matt doesn't have to get up early tomorrow because it is his day off, and I usually go into the shop about 10 o'clock anyway, so that kind of worked out. The only thing was having to just come out here from home, but it's fine.
Yeah, and we have not been around streaming a whole lot lately, but we had a very busy July.
Yeah.
And a super busy start to August. So it's going to start slowing down at some point in my next year.
Yes.
But we should be getting back to our regularly scheduled streams pretty soon here. But today we are discussing, whose movie was it?
It was yours.
Mine. Shit. So I gotta be ready. You got comments today, Juice?
Yeah, give me one. Yep. So, hi, Strange. The Iron Claw. I was cussed out by my wife because even though I told her it was sad, I didn't tell her that it was that sad. So, yeah. Yeah, no. Okay, so, this is our first watch of this movie. Originally, we wanted to go see it in theaters, but we just never got around to doing it just because of time and money and life in general. And then when it got to HBO, when it got on Max, when it went on to streaming, I pushed it off until I could watch it without interruptions, and I never got around to it. And then this little project of ours came up, and Matt said, okay, I'm gonna put it on my wheel, and then I said, fuck, well, I can't watch it until we watch it on the wheel.
Yeah.
So this is a first watch through for everybody, and boy, it was.
So, what this is about? So, the Iron Claw is the true story of the inseparable Von Erich brothers, who made history in the intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. It is starring Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, who I will watch everything he does now. I have to watch Shameless at some point.
And The Bear.
Holt McCallany?
You're asking the wrong person.
McCallany? The guy from Mindhunters. Maura Tierney?
Yeah,
I'm
Maura
really
Tierney.
bad at this. Along with cameos from Chavo Guerrero, Maxwell Jacob Freeman, and Ryan Nemeth.
Did you happen to mention? Did you mention? The dad was before Maura Tierney.
Yes, that
Fritz?
was the first one,
Fritz?
McCallany.
Okay.
But it was directed by Sean Durkin, who has done this. It was also written by Sean Durkin.
Okay.
And average IMDb rating is 7.5.
That's pretty accurate. For
That's-
honestly.
And yeah, so let's jump into this.
Strange says you gotta watch The Bear. It's basically Anxiety, the show. Nemeth is Dolph Ziggler's brother. Yes, I made comment to that was Little Ziggler.
Anxiety, the show.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Every clip I've seen of The Bear has made me want to watch it.
There is a movie on either Netflix. It's on streaming. It's starring Bradley Cooper. He is a chef. I don't remember what the movie's called.
I can know that. Okay.
It's basic. I haven't seen The Bear, but I can figure it's basically what that movie was.
Okay. All right. So let's get into this. Initial thoughts.
All right, I'll go first. Holy shit! Not what I was expecting. I never realized how tragic their story was. Oh, well, good to know, Strange. Yeah, I never knew how tragic their story was. Granted, the only thing I really knew about the Von Erichs was their popularity in Texas. I knew that they ran world-class championship wrestling. I knew that they were big in Texas, but I never knew the tragedy behind the family. I still have yet to see the Dark Side of the Ring, so I'm curious to learn more. This movie does a really good job of really telling their family dynamic story, revolving around the world of professional wrestling, even though it's not necessarily at the forefront. This movie's more about family than it is about the wrestling. The wrestling is there because it's part of their lifestyle, but it's not the epicenter. I think that's the right word. It's not the epicenter of the story.
Yeah. Sweetheart?
I knew it because at some point I remember looking doing a deep dive on Wikipedia as I want to do every once in a while. So I already knew. I don't remember all the details before watching this movie, and obviously watching someone dramatized version of it is much different than reading about it, and I had forgotten a lot of it, but I already kind of knew there was some shit that went down before watching this, I enjoy. No, I don't say the word enjoy. It kind of be a strong word, honestly. I thought it was okay. Because I am part of the wrestling community. I understood, some of the dynamics with regards to how important things were, with regards to title pushes and so forth and so on. I think that's stuff that can be translated even still if you're not a big wrestling fan, if you're not into the community, you still understand ambition. And that's basically what this really, really kind of broke down to was, it's a story about family, but it's a story about one family and the patriarch's ambition specifically, and how that basically kind of not corrupted, but ended up infecting the rest of his children, his children. There's a tragedy there in that he was more or less seeing them as tools more than he was people, and we can speculate as to his actual true feelings, whether he loved his children, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. I'm sure it was there somewhere, but they really did become more of an means to an end for him, more to the point to sacrificing their own well-being.
Yeah.
So, and that the one person who kind of came out of it, who managed to survive it, was the one who said no at some point, made the decision to take a step back, and to a certain extent, and certainly in his father's eyes, reject that vision. But he's the only one who survived, basically. So. Well,
basically, it wasn't until after all of his brothers basically passed that, well, according to the dramatization, once there was nobody left and he had nothing else outside of his immediate family, wrestling wasn't the biggest thing. It wasn't the light at the end of the tunnel anymore. And that's why he was able to tell his father that, no, this isn't for me anymore. I have to focus on my family, on my
Well, that was before
family.
his brothers. That's before all of his brothers passed, I thought.
No, because before all his brothers passed, he was still trying to live up to his father's
Right.
expectations.
No,
of him.
once Carrie died is when he sold everything. And was like,
Oh,
fuck
okay.
this
Yeah,
out.
because up until then he was
No, because when his kids were when did Carrie die compared to when his kids were in school?
before.
Okay, because that's when his kids were in school and he needed money because they had an apartment.
Oh,
that's
they
right,
were
it's
talking
Carrie.
about it. They were talking about it, but
Yeah,
he did not pull the
okay.
trigger yet.
Okay, that's what it was. And like, that's
And he
what we're trying
refused to pull the trigger because of what
So
his father
at that
was
so at that
So this is a
point,
challenge like trying to do the movie review a week after we've already watched the movie.
Yeah.
it was yeah, I know. It was at that point. So it was at that point where he decided to embrace his family because when I thought it was very interesting why he was sleeping in the office. Because I brought it up, I'm like, why is he sleeping in the office at the sportatorium? I didn't understand it, and it wasn't until the movie did a great job later explaining he tells Pam, I can't be around you guys. I don't want to inflict this curse
Right.
onto my son.
Yeah.
So he basically distanced himself because he thought whatever curse was on his family, he was gonna pass it to his son. That's why he gave his son his legal last name instead of Von Erich.
Well, so like from what I remember, he definitely like kind of takes everything like this stuff like I'm done when Carrie died.
Oh yeah, when Carrie
but
dies,
he
that's it.
already had taken a step back.
Yes,
which is
that-
why he was able to have a second child that we see later on because him and his wife were able to make things work, and he decided to basically become a stay-at-home dad while
Yeah.
she pursues her vet practice.
Correct.
So, but before he'd already had a step back before Carrie had died. He'd already said, "I'm not doing this."
I believe it was when
he might have been like still helping out.
So it was after Michael died. Not
yes.
Michael. Is it Mike?
Yes.
Yes, because I didn't want to confuse him with Chris. Yeah. So after Michael died, and he was going through a slew of mixed partners, including a cameo by MJF. That's when he realized I don't want to do this anymore.
It was after the Ric Flair match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
After
what it
the
was.
Flair,
Ric Flair's like, let's do that again sometime. And he's like, you know what? Nah, I think I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, it was after the Flair match where he where he lost it.
And then we skip jumped about like time jump or whatever, like 7 years, 5 years, whatever.
Yep.
To when Carrie dies.
Yeah.
But at that point, he'd already taken a step back.
Yeah.
So the rejection comes when he decides to sell the sportatorium. But he'd already made the decision to back out for his family.
Yeah.
The sportatorium was basically that last thread after Carrie dies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was my interpretation is it's obviously a tragedy for all involved. And David manages to survive it only because he
Kevin.
basically Kevin?
It's Kevin.
Yeah, you're right, Kevin. Kevin only manages to survive. It's my fucking name. Only manages to survive basically because at some point he bows out of that vision.
Speaking of too many of them,
There's another one that was.
yeah, there was the other. Yeah, because
Chris.
Strange mentioned there was another brother. Yeah, and we.
They kind of conflated his story with Mike's.
Yeah, that's what he's saying here, and that's kind of what we figured out later on because the movie never mentioned Chris.
Because it probably would have been too much to try and involve like that many actors in one story.
Yeah, probably.
And then there was Jack, which they never mentioned. But they did not mention him. But they mentioned him, but they never explain like what happens to him.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Your first impressions?
All right.
So this movie hit me super hard. For those who don't know, we are actually in the wrestling world.
We haven't mentioned it several thousand times before.
Yeah.
We
For
are
those of
not-
you that don't know.
Yeah. I've been in for 12 years. Juice, you've been in close to that.
I've been
Around it.
It's been 10. It's been 10. 11, no, it's been 11 years.
Okay.
It'll be no. Yeah, it's been 11 years now.
And it's pretty close to the same for you.
It's
so.
11 years for me. It was 10 years last year.
Yeah, so we've all been in it for more than a decade, so this movie hits a little harder. Now, it doesn't hit the wrestling life as hard as the wrestler does with Mickey Rourke.
Oh no.
I definitely relate to that one more, but I think that's because there's a lot of nepotism in this movie, and that's kind of what that's kind of what this is built off of, because they really drive it home in the first act that the patriarch Jack never got the world title.
Well,
Fritz.
Fritz.
Well, it's Jack
Fritz.
Senior.
Jack is his real
Jack
name,
Senior,
but Fritz
Fritz.
von Erich.
Yeah.
Never got the world championship, the NWA World Championship, and because of that, his whole purpose is to push his sons to
fulfill the dream that he could
to do what he couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's God. There's so many telling things about this, but what I really like the slow crumble, and there's a lot of mental health issues that I also feel a lot. This movie definitely had me pretty much crying at the end. There's a lot of layers that I'm probably going to talk about on the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great. But this is definitely a tough film, a tough watch. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, but I'm glad I did watch it.
No, yeah, absolutely. It was. I think it was for us in the culture that we're in. I think it's definitely one of those movies where you kind of have to watch it because of what we're involved in, and because of the impact that the family had in the world of professional wrestling is another thing. I mean, Grant, like we said, wrestling isn't at the forefront, but their impact cannot be denied.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that kind of struck me about this movie is that it doesn't focus a lot on the wrestling, which I think is a better thing for it.
No, absolutely.
I think that a lot of times when we focus on the wrestling, it's mostly focused on wrestling movies. A lot of times it focuses on trying to help people understand what wrestling is. And you don't really need to know what wrestling is to watch this movie. What you do need to know is this guy had a bunch of sons who he tried to push into a specific... He at some point says he doesn't want his sons to follow his footsteps. But if that's all they're got, this is what they're going to do. And basically it's what they were still also being pushed into at the same time. But basically they all end up going into wrestling one form or another to try and fulfill his dream to not the extent, but which ended up negatively impacting their own mental and physical health. And so that's a story you can understand whether it's gymnastics or wrestling or basketball or what have you not, or fucking financial Wall Street or something. The idea of parents' pressure on their children to fulfill their dreams rather than the other way around. Trying to fulfill their own and find their own identity, and of course the impact it will have on them as a result. It's just so overly drastic, dramatic or tragic because of the obvious outcomes that happened repeatedly within this family.
Yeah.
There are so many of you had 6 kids and one of them survived into adulthood to be successful or whatever. The other ones survived adulthood, but only one of them outlived you.
So, before you get into the good, the bad, the ugly, and all that, I'm going to do a spoiler warning, obviously, which we've already had that. These have always been spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm also going to do a trigger warning. We're going to be talking about suicide, mental health, other things of that nature, so be prepared for that. But let's get into it with the good. Would you like to start, Jim?
Sure. Okay, so... This movie, this movie is good in general. The performances were great overall. Zac Efron really shines in this movie. Just performances all across the board are really well done. I think the pacing of it is very good. It never really felt dull. At any moment, there were. Granted, if it gets late and you're tired, I can see that, especially for us. But no, I really enjoyed the pacing. I really liked how the little bits of wrestling that we got were to showcase major moments in their careers. I really loved. I really liked and no, isn't that? Honestly, I don't even remember my favorite at this point, but I really like the montage between the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, that whole rivalry, just little snippets that we get. We don't need the whole thing, but we get enough to let you know, hey, this was the feud in world-class championship wrestling. It was great. Cinematography, I'm really good. I think the writing is fine. I don't know how much I can complain about it. Again, still kind of getting my eye and ear for that. And I still love that it's, because of the time period that we're in, it's not flashy wrestling is another thing.
Yeah.
You know, the most you're gonna get is some drop kicks,
Mm.
and some of them aren't pretty, but I think that's kind of just a testament to not everything is perfect in wrestling.
Well,
And that's
that and
what
also
wrestling
your
was back
actors
then.
doing it necessarily.
That's true, but
Chavo trained them all.
Yeah, Chavo trained them all, but it happens.
Yeah.
Again, it happens. Sometimes you miss by an inch, sometimes you miss by a mile.
Yeah.
But luckily in this movie, you don't get that mile. You know, it just, like I said, some of the drop kicks, they're low and it happens. You know, but again, these are.
But this is a video where you can say cut, do it again.
Exactly. These are professional actors who are not all necessarily professional.
At most of wrestling training.
Exactly. They might have had maybe, let's say, 2 months.
Yeah.
I
Of
mean,
wrestling
give them
training.
6 months, but they probably have training throughout. And also.
Exactly.
2 months is probably more accurate.
Yeah. I think when you have a movie of this, I mean, this is an A24, so it's not a big budget movie.
Yeah.
But because it's a small, A24 to me isn't super big. It's kind of middle of the road studio, so they don't have a lot of money. At least I don't think. What was the budget on this film, Matthew? By the way, since this was your movie this week. Because I don't think we went over the budget or what it made.
You did not.
Because I remember this movie came out at the end of 2023.
That'd be 3 years. Not that long.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. This movie came out at the end of 2023. I remember because it was slated for like the holidays of 2023, and I don't think it made it to the Oscars either.
So they had a budget of $15 million.
Okay.
And it made worldwide $45 million.
So
it didn't do great.
No, it didn't do great, but it made three times. It made
profit.
Yeah, it made a profit. So again, with the movie,
$15 million is still a lot lower than that would have been.
So it was a movie.
Yeah, it was a movie. But again, this type of a movie, I don't expect anything too grand, and I'm not sure what the production time would have been, but I feel like 2 months to train three big names. Well, 2 big names. Dave, whoever played David, I don't know what else he was in, but to get them, ring solid, and then for Zac Efron to still be as big as he got for this movie, I don't think it would have been a long time.
No, probably.
But Zach had probably been, training or getting in shape for this role even before production started.
Well, and the other thing is our perspective may be a little askew because we are used to a different kind of training schedule. If all of us wrestlers and all of our wrestlers were making 6 figures to train and learn this,
That's
and
fair.
they had an open schedule Sunday through Sunday to train, in 2 months they're going to learn a lot more than what our guys learn in 2 months.
That's fair.
So
they're still only doing it in 2 months, though, so they probably still are going to have the nosh, the finish.
Yeah.
You're going to have somebody doing it for several years.
That's fair. And then again, the nice thing is you're learning basics, and you're keeping it simple because it's set in the 70s and the 80s, so you don't have to do anything too flashy either. But I think that's it. That's it for my good. Next.
My good is that it's just good. I'm not gonna have a whole lot of bad for this movie. It was very well done. The acting performances were fantastic. It's a solid movie, but I can't really give it much more than that.
Yeah.
I felt like there was some, I'll get into my bad about it, but just to explain why my good is not very, expressive, is that, it hits all the beats that it needs to. The actors' performances are fantastic. The dialogue, the context, and everything you need to understand for all the different relationships that that are there is very well done. But that's about all I can say for it. There might be more things that I think of as time goes on, but I definitely remember, like, there's time that's passed now since we watched the movie, so it's a little more challenging as well. But I know, like, my impressions when we were coming out of the movie, watching it last week, was, yeah, that was just good. There wasn't anything that really blew me away about it. And so for me trying to identify something specifically that I thought was really, I have greats, but I don't really have a whole lot of, like, specific goods aside from, like, the script was solid and the performances were very, very good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let Tully go.
So I just have a couple. I like how they focus on the consequences of the trauma and not the trauma itself.
Yes.
For example, we have Carrie's motorcycle accident where he's flying down the highway, and then the very next scene is him waking up with one leg.
Yeah, and we don't even get.
They don't spend any money on the big wreck,
It's not important.
Exactly.
What's important is the consequences.
And that's pretty. This movie is a lot about consequences. Which I really appreciated, and it was a really interesting way to do it because a lot of Hollywood studios would be like, no, we need the wreck, we need the excitement, we need the action.
Well, we have the money for the wreck with the excitement.
And
so.
they really didn't fuck with that too much. But also the nuanced lines that that Fitz used. Like, Fitz is easily the best written character and best acted character in the film.
Yes.
And there's some nuance to his lines that really caught me. You go into this family and it's like, oh, okay, this is an American family, blah, 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 and they're eating breakfast and everyone's having a good time, and you're in this kind of like, this is as American as apple pie moment here.
Yeah.
This is really nice. And he hits us with the, so yeah, all of you have rankings. Right now, Carrie's my favorite, and then him, and then him, and then him, and then him. And the rankings can change at any time. Just ho-hum. I obviously have favorites among you, and I love one of you more than the others, and
it just depends.
It can change it on the day. So whatever. Let's move on. Next thing. And it's just like this line that's just kind of, whoa. What did he just say?
Was he kidding? He was not kidding. He's had a time in his life, and they're very much aware of this.
And then later on, you had brought up the, I wouldn't wish wrestling on any of you.
Yeah.
And it's really like, he wants them all in wrestling because it increases his odds of getting the belt.
Yep.
But he says that because then he can defend himself if it goes wrong. Like, I said I didn't want you in it. I tried to keep you out of it.
Yeah.
It's classic manipulator behavior.
Yeah.
And he played that role so well. I hated him so much. Watching everything between it, and it just, oh god, it was a lot.
It's just like, oh boy.
Strange, I hate you, but alright, let's see what Strange has.
It's just like Matt, we all know currently Nick is his favorite, but depending on how far you make it into the business, it could change.
That's
I'm not say
true,
actually.
but okay.
Oh, go ahead, Fit.
I love all my students equally.
Do you?
Yes!
It just depends on how much you piss him off.
No, they all piss me off.
That's why I said,
I love you all equally, but some of you piss me off more.
Yeah, some of you piss me off more than others.
So yeah, the nuance in the lines is really good. God. I'm going to save that for great. I think that's going to cover my good. Right.
Can I add something? I'm not sure if I wanted to go under my great. It wasn't going to be there, but I didn't think about it until just now, or if I wanted to be under my good. So I'm going to say it just to get out the way. Because I don't know if it was intentional or not. So that's why I'm going to put it under my good.
Okay.
You mentioned the idea of him, like, giving the ranking order.
Yeah.
And Kevin is... You're my family and I love you, but you're all...
Yes, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's closer. That's definitely closer.
I would say that the hierarchy and the contention that exists between the brothers and within that family, although it's probably, again, dramatized and I don't know if it's as warm fuzzy as even that movie presents it, but the idea of within the wrestling community, within a competitive, artistic environment. Because that's basically what wrestling is. It's basically what the movie industry is. It's basically worse than the movie industry.
Entertainment industry.
The entertainment industry. But the idea is that we're all doing something together. We're all trying to perform. We're all trying to get here. But we still compete against each other to get the top spot.
Yeah.
And to see that demonstrated within a family dynamic is mirroring that of what you would see within a wrestling federation, because we also call ourselves family. Like, we're probably more of a community than a family, even within a fed, but that's closer to family than the community because you spend more time with them. But of course, some families are more toxic than others. And so, like, yeah, there's this need to support one another because if nothing else, it's transactional. I support you, you support me, but also because you know that it's something that someone else needs, and you want them to do their best because it helps you make you do your best, and you want somebody to do better than you because you don't want them to struggle the way that you did, right? But it's also competition, because every time they're up there that you're not, that means just more times that you get to be seen, or they get to be seen over you. There's more opportunities, so forth and so on. And so that's kind of definitely what happens in this story, where Kevin is at first the one who's shining, but then the minute somebody else like comes up and looks a little bit better than him, he gets kind of tossed to the wayside, and he never really climbs his way back up, except because everyone else keeps dying around him as he now finally get a chance. And yeah, so like that's one thing I thought that was a really interesting dynamic and mirror of the actual wrestling industry. As applied to this family, it goes very similarly. It's just sucks because you don't want that kind of dynamic within your family to a certain extent either, because no one really wants to compete against their brothers, or sisters, or whatever. You want to be equal. You want to be there for each other.
You want to bring each other up, essentially.
Exactly. You want them to be
better. Yeah, and it's the beauty of the manipulation of wrestling. Don't care about this title, it doesn't mean anything, but this title does recognize you as one of the best in the company. Don't compete with each other, but each of you is fighting for each other's spot. Your job is to make each other look good, but you also can't let them get your spot. And it's like this weird dichotomy of, God, bullshittery that the pro wrestling is. And it was, yes, very, very well put to film.
I just don't know how intentional it was. That's why I'm only leaving it as my good. If it was intentional, it's great.
Yeah. Okay, so bad. I feel like this is going to go quickly.
Probably. You're gonna have to skip me because I'm blanking. I probably won't have anything either. I'll be honest. All right. No. I don't really have any bad, except how it's Zac Efron. Zac Efron's way too big. I think he looks way too big. I think that's probably to compensate for his height, because I watched the Hall of Fame induction of the Von Erichs.
Oh, and he's tall.
He is tall. He is a tall man.
Mm-hmm.
So and Zac
was an issue. Mm-hmm. So casting was an issue for you.
No. It's not the casting. It's just how he's too big.
Yeah, the Von Erichs were rather slender, except for Carrie.
Yeah.
Carrie was the bulky one.
But even then,
yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, no, he's on my bad. I will get that.
Wait, I didn't.
We will bring up that comment in a second, because that is like
oh my
number
god,
one
yeah.
of my
Oh
bad.
man, then I should add that on there. Holy shit. But let me go back. Yeah, no. Jeremy Allen White, I think he looked perfect for Carrie. He might have been a little on the short side, but he
pulled it off.
He pulled it off. I think he looked great. For, if anything, maybe he could have been as jacked as Zac Efron could have been, but Zac's probably used to that type of working out. But I think Zac was way too big. I mean, I even said his jaw. His jaw is a result of an accident. Okay, that is something that actually happened to him outside of. Fair enough. Outside of that, I think he looked way too big for this character, for this portrayal. but that could have been, and that's probably again to compensate for his height. Jeremy Allen White was fine. Yeah, Flair movie Flair. I have not. That was almost as bad, as bad, or if not at.
We're talking
worse.
about Ric Flair for those people who might be talking about Lens Flair or anything like that.
No.
We're talking about the portrayal of Ric Flair.
The casting of Ric Flair in this movie is as bad, if not worse, than that of Young Rock.
And I've seen Young Rock's casting. Young Rock's casting is trash.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, God. Triple H pisses me off every time I see him.
Oh, the movie, the show. Not even the character Young Rock.
No. There's a show called Young Rock.
Right, yeah. I know
and
it is.
they casted wrestlers in it, and they are not.
They cast...
None of them seem like...
No. None of them
Young Rock?
Young Rock is probably the closest one.
And maybe Andre. Whoever they cast.
I haven't seen any clips with Andre, but Triple H is terrible. Stone Cold is terrible.
Yeah, the only ones that are actually really good again are, I think, Andre and maybe Andre, the Wild Samoans maybe, and Macho Man.
Yeah, which
and then, those are '80s wrestlers.
Which, by the way, I mean we're talking about Ric Flair, probably top 5 most recognizable wrestler in history.
Definitely, he is definitely on multiple people's Mount Rushmore. We're talking about the 16-time. Well, maybe not. Well, not even.
I'm talking about casual fans, people who don't even study this shit know who Ric Flair is.
Of course.
Maybe.
Okay, Stone Cold. You know who this is.
No, Stone Cold.
Right? So depending on your era, you know who these people are. So the fact that you get hired to play Ric fucking Flair and you can't, as an actor, capture that persona or understand that persona or do the due diligence to learn that persona, it seems like he read the script and he's like, I'm going to do my own thing with it. You're not allowed to when you're playing someone else.
Yeah,
you are Ric fucking Flair. Go be Ric Flair.
When we have plenty of video, when you're literally redoing
promos,
emotional areas,
promos that are done, that there's tape of,
Yeah.
that you literally could have done bit by bit, and it would have been better than what you fucking gave us. This is the only thing that pissed me off in the entire movie, because I really liked the movie, and then Flair showed up, and I'm like, the fuck is this?
Yeah, I still don't know if it's enough for me to bring it down from a 7.5.
No,
but it's the worst part of the movie.
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
I hated it.
It's so sad because it looks like he comes like not even like this close, whatever. He gets close. There's parts where he's hitting. It's like a singer, right? So you're trying to sound like another singer.
I think he's hitting like the high angry points.
Yeah,
but that's it.
But there's no emotion behind it.
And what
no
it felt like to
sincerity.
me is he watched the promo and went, okay, he did good at these parts, but I can make these parts better, and you can't!
Nope.
Because it's Ric fucking Flair! They picked that promo specifically, not only because it was part of the time, but it's one of his more iconic fucking promos!
Well, specifically as a result refers to the Von Erichs. But here's the thing, it also, I was thinking about it as you were going over it. Are we still on Juice's bad or?
No, we're on his. We're on Max.
Oh no, I took over. You were doing your bad.
Oh well, then okay. Well, I
actually.
mean, then that's it.
Oh, if that's it for you, then I am going to continue this tirade on Flair because I'm not fucking done.
I'm gonna jump in with you because before I have my turn. That I wonder why they decided to keep that in. Right? They've done a lot. We've not really seen a whole lot of promos from other people. For people who don't know what a promo is, maybe would you care to explain that?
So a promo is a video or an interview done by a wrestler to promote an upcoming match,
or to promote themselves for their character work.
Yes.
So this is where he'll just be talking or whatever, and basically just them yelling at each other a lot of times. They're talking about how good or how bad the other person is and why they're better. But the idea is that it is to get interest in a match. And I think that's the main reason why they did that one, because that match...
The cats are fighting, y'all.
No, Ripley is fighting Newt.
And Newt is just didn't get me.
But they used that one, they left that one in, because that match he is finally kind of a vindication for him that he deserves to fucking be there. That he should have been the one that his dad chose all along. That Rick even comes to him afterwards like, wow, that was fucking wonderful. Despite the fact that he goes off, way off script. And basically, like, but he still goes off script to the point where Rick's like, oh, shit, fine, kid, let's do this some more. That was fun. But it also shows that, afterwards Rick's like, let's go get some drinks. Like, he's kind of living the fast life and of a lot of, like, very successful wrestlers. And he's like, this is your opportunity to jump into this life with me. You finally vindicated whatever everyone said about you, what you thought about yourself, and this is your ticket. And he decides to not go. This is his last time you see him lacing up for the ring. After that, it skips forward to him being a stay-at-home dad. And so the reason I kept that promo in is to help garner some interest and understanding the importance of this coming up match, even though it goes way off the rails very quickly, despite whatever they're trying to set up. The fact that he did so terribly on it just kind of sours the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, baby.
His hair was terrible. His promos were terrible. His mannerisms were terrible.
I want to have bad with hair.
His in-ring work was not Flair.
His woos were horrible.
Oh my God! You can't woo Rick Flair.
Kurt Angle had better woos.
It's easy.
Yeah.
It's woo.
He just didn't.
It's
not that hard.
It's infuriating that someone took that iconic of a role and was so blasé about it.
Yeah.
It does feel like they didn't understand what they were asked to do.
Cat fight! Cat fight!
Ripley just long live the king milkshake.
Hi, Ripley.
Anyway, no, so Ric Flair is definitely almost entirely my bad, but because it's such a huge part of the movie.
It's not a huge part of the movie, it's like 3 minutes.
But it's the culmination.
No, it is, basically.
Like, you have to execute this part.
Yeah.
So, no.
He's got Jay Lethal at that point. He looks nothing like Flair, but it's a better impression.
Yeah, honestly, I would rather have Jay Lethal. He does a fantastic Flair. But anyway, so that is probably, is that it for my bad? I feel like I had more for my bad, but I think, the fact that they just mixed two brothers together. Like, if you're gonna tell the story, tell the whole fucking story.
Yeah.
Don't Hollywood it up. Okay? But that is also just a personal thing with me. I understand the reason for it, so it's not a huge deal. It's not as bad as Flair, so that's pretty much all I got. Go ahead.
No, I guess that one's not going to be bad for me just because I understand why they did it, if I may. It's because, one, casting, they just didn't feel like going through casting somebody else. 2, time, how much longer are we going to have to try and tell the story. And 3, at this point, and spoiler and trigger warning abound, you've already had 2 brothers choose to take their life as a result of the actions of their father and the lifestyle that they're living in and its impact on the family overall.
Yeah.
I don't think you really need to hammer that lesson in for the 3rd brother.
No.
And that's really what this is about. This story is not just about the Von Erich's family and we just want to do a dramatization of their lives. If that's the case, we would have left Carrie's kids in. We don't have Carrie's kids. No. Carrie had kids.
Yeah.
And he was married at some point. His divorce was part of the reason why he was so depressed at the end of his life. And aside from the crippling pain he was dealing with trying to stay in this lifestyle. We left a lot of that shit out. So I'm not going to, penalize them too much for the fact that they chose to leave a brother out when the lesson of the story is still being well communicated without him.
All right.
But what I will say is, definitely Ric Flair's easily the worst part of that film, which is a shame. I don't want to this movie was fine, not you.
Sounds about right. That sounds about right.
I feel bad. Because you still did your thing. It just was, by comparison, just so... Because they gave you so much time to really, shine, and that was the best that you showed.
Who did play him, by the way? Let's
he
put
looks
his
familiar,
ass
too.
on blast.
He looks familiar, and I can't remember where he's from. I don't even know. I might be thinking of somebody else. But what I will say is... Plus, I don't know. I think it would have been just too much for my money. You gotta tell the full story, but it would have destroyed someone.
Like my wife to see a fourth death.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Like you've already had enough. So, but what I was gonna say was the other thing that I really kind of like felt was a bad, and I can't put my finger on it, and I don't remember what point it was, but it was this movie felt like a biopic, and obviously it is. But at some point, I remember vividly feeling like, okay, they're hitting these beats because they have to, as opposed to this is a story that flows and the brushstrokes are seamless. For the most part, that's true. But there were points in transition through scenes, I think, where I was just kind of like, they're doing this to get to another point. And I can't remember what it was, and it wasn't anything that was glaring or obvious or terrible that made. Because if it was, I would have remembered it.
Would it have been in My Good? Would it have been from My Good, which was the montage, like the montage between the rivalries?
I mean, maybe that was a little bit of it, but not really. That actually might have been part of it, but I don't think so. I remember thinking it was part of a conversation that was going on somewhere. But it felt like it was just kind of. Not dragging, but it felt dry.
Okay.
There wasn't very much like we're leaving the scene in because we have to hit this point, but the emotion that's being communicated doesn't necessarily match. And that happens a lot of times in documentary, biopic movies, stuff like that. And doesn't have to happen all the time. And sometimes that happens and you don't notice it. Or sometimes that happens it's like a blip and you go move on. But that was my bad. Was that like at some point I felt like, okay, they're just hitting all the beats to try and make sure that we're hitting the beats. But I don't know how necessary these are to telling the story they're trying to tell. So if this was more recent, I would probably remember what it was exactly that made me feel that way.
Right.
And it wasn't a lot of it. It didn't happen very often. But it was enough for me to go, okay, yeah, this is why this movie is going to be a solid 7.5 for me. Like, it was good, but wasn't that good.
Yeah.
So ugly. I'm going to go on this one because I only have one. It's an ugly great. And it's honestly the portrayal of mental health.
Yeah.
The reason it's an ugly is because this movie will hurt if you go through mental health. It's going to remind you of things. It's going to trigger you. There is a lot of sad parts of this movie. I'm sure a lot of people cried when Carrie died, and I'm sure a lot of people cried the way they shot. Is it David?
Mike.
The musician's death.
Yeah, Mike.
Mike's death. The way they shot that was so hauntingly beautiful.
Yeah.
With the music. And Carrie and Kevin in the ring, and just the way it flowed into every way was hauntingly beautiful is all I can say about it. But the part that hit me the hardest was the phone call between Kevin and Carrie at the end, when Carrie is pretty much like, I'm done. The curse has me, and I'm ready for the curse to just take me, because I can't do it anymore. And I guess because I've personally been to that place a couple times, or been on the edge of that place, and it ripped my heart out to see that on film, because it was so well portrayed, and it's absolutely what happens. And it really fucked with me. I had to go actually outside for like an hour and a half after the movie just to kind of get my head back together. Because this movie fucked me up. So it's an ugly great, but this will make you think about mental health, make you think about your mental health, especially if you have struggles with it. It is done beautifully, but it will rip your fucking heart out. So you need to be ready for that. So
Strange said this movie led to my current break from wrestling because I felt so much pressure on my shoulders, and I felt like I was failing. I saw it in the movie. I knew I needed a break. Yeah, I think the thing is, with anything that you do in life, and whether it be work, whether it be a hobby like wrestling, or, you get to a certain point in life where you realize things are not going the way you thought it would, and sometimes you feel like you just have to pressure yourself to go harder, faster, stronger, whatever, and things still just don't seem to be going your way. So basically, it's like the meaning of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, leading with expecting different results. But at some point, you have to like step away to get yourself right before you can get back to grinding the stone, because you need a different perspective on what it is that you do, and we all get there at some point. I'll be honest, I kind of burned out from wrestling in general. Kind of from the stress of feeling like I needed to take care of everything because promoters I was working with weren't getting things done. So I stepped away for a while. I stepped away from in-ring competition as well, just for my physical health. And now I just referee, and even then, it's like, okay, I know what my role is, and my role is to not get involved and not do outside of what I should be doing, because I don't need that stress on myself as well. I mean, everyone takes on different levels of responsibility. It's just a matter of what you're ready to. And if you're not ready for that responsibility, you need to reassess things and figure out what works best for you. But going back into this, it's like, again, whatever you choose to do it in increments where you're gonna do well, or at least where you're comfortable enough. And if you feel overwhelmed at any point, take a step back, reassess things, and when you're ready, hop back into the grind. At least that's kind of the way I see it.
So you're ugly? Or...
I don't really have an ugly. I agree with you. I think it's an ugly great, like you said, because it focuses a lot on mental health, but I think depending on the perspective you take on this movie, it's a realization of mental health in general, and what the consequences could be, and how important mental care is for everyone.
So before I did my graduate work in education, I actually originally went to graduate school for communication. I was hoping to do journalism. That didn't work out, obviously. But one of the classes I took there was Dark Side of Communication. It's actually how I learned about Lost. It's the first time I saw any episodes of Lost, like season 2, and I ended up that began my commitment to finishing that series like 5 times over, however many times I fucking watch that show now because of that class. But one of the things they talk about basically is the idea of like what's said and what's not said. The dark side of communication. We always talk about communication as being something that's positive, but there's obviously dark sides of that also, kind of to your point of the dark side of the ring. The idea is that like we have harassment, we have abuse, we have toxic relationships. We have lies, we have duplicity. And so the idea is, I think that if someone was teaching that class, I think this movie would fall very easily into the idea of a dark side of communication curriculum, simply because of what is communicated and what is not communicated. And to quote my high school speech teacher, you cannot not communicate. Your silence still speaks. What you say is still just as important as what you don't say. And it's not just verbal, it's what, like when he's like, he was talking to like, Carrie, I think, or David at that point, like we've had some setbacks, and he kind of like nods a little bit towards the other 2 brothers who are sitting in the room listening to this conversation without being actually calling them out. And then the side, the head tilt is almost easily missable.
Yeah.
But if you're paying attention, and they would have been paying attention, they would have known he was talking about them.
Well, Kevin does react as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin reacts.
Because he knows he's talking about him. And he would, because he was the one who was the golden boy for a second there. And so, stuff like that, the idea of when Kevin is desperate, asking for his dad to help Carrie before he kills himself. Like, hey, Carrie's over there with you. Watch out for him. And his dad's silent. And then it's like, listen to you and your brother's gonna work out for yourselves. Like, Dad, please, like, right? No, like the lack of awareness for mental health, and it's after you had a son already kill himself before. Another son that I actually read Wikipedia. There is, while his official cause of death is listed as enteritis, David von Erich's potential death was like drug abuse or whatever.
Yeah.
So like these are things that they were doing to themselves to cope with the pain of living under your world. And so like, would you please? You have one more son left. Can you please keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't do anything stupid? I don't know if I should. Like, I don't think it's really my responsibility. The very first point, we see Kevin go to his mom. Hey, I think they should be lighter on Mike. Kevin realizes the importance of, he loves his family. He wants to protect his family, and he doesn't feel like his parents are doing enough to protect them. And their response is, that's not something I should be worried about. That's not something you should be worried about. That's not, so I put this under my ugly for an ugly great for same, similar, but not the same, but for different reasons. Mm-hmm. It is very much a display of how to not communicate within a family dynamic. When someone is asking for help, it's not like the worst thing in that they're just like, you're a terrible human being and beating them to death or whatever. But it is almost neglect to the point of abuse.
Yeah.
So, that's my ugly.
Alright, so great. I covered mine.
I'm going to jump in first this time.
Sure.
My great is actually the scene where they show all three brothers kind of like in this weird like set of their faces are all kind of overlay each other as they're all dealing through.
Oh yeah.
Like they're all they're all abusing some sort of drug or whatever to try and stay at their peak, basically for wrestling before David goes to
Japan.
Yeah.
And it's shortly after that scene that we see him retching up blood at Kevin's wedding.
Yeah.
So it's like this immediate after effect of like how pushing yourself so hard and then also mixing drugs and everything else that's almost baked into the culture at this time, as well as certainly his dad, if he wasn't canning him out, would have been okay with. Like, oh yeah, you need to be at your peak game. Like, it's not enough for you to just be like, working out all the time, obviously. Give yourself whatever advantage you need. And so if this is the advantage they felt they needed, because it's going from the scene where Mike is doing a high school party, college party, and Carrie's, going hard with the keg or whatever, and then shortly afterwards we have them, like montage or whatever of them like in the life, and it kind of shows them like going hard basically and trying to keep up with the life.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like that montage, like you see the three brothers kind of individually, and then it kind of blends, so you're going to see them like happening simultaneously, and then it blends finally to them having one face. And it's very much this, okay, they are the same person basically at this stage, because they're all having the same issues that their dad has kind of like imparted upon them as they all try and do the same, like, industry, the same career, and they're all making the same decisions at this point, and so what the outcome's going to be is going to be different, but at this moment they are the same. So that was my great.
Real quick, so Strange says that he has an ugly. I'll give you a bad view of the dad of Fritz, because according to Kevin, he was actually a very good father. Now I don't know if that's true, but I have to take Kevin's word.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Kevin came out and said he's a good dad.
Right.
But the thing is, a lot of times, our parents make mistakes, and we're still like, they did the best for us. Like, we're not going to sit here and shit on them, because...
Exactly.
Are any of us who we are without our parents? Or lack thereof.
Right.
I mean... They're such an essential role in our lives that it's hard for anyone to come out and just shit on their parents.
Unless you had a really bad relationship with your parents.
Yeah.
Unless your parents were actual horrible people that like did not give a shit, that were just there to provide, for minimum a roof over your head, then
And if this movie's made 20 years ago, then Fitz is shown as a motivating father who just wants his son to succeed where he failed, and he may be the hero of the film.
Yeah, maybe.
Just because there was not as much understanding in parenting style and dynamic and whether that was okay or not.
Nah, I think that depends on what kind of story they're trying to tell. This story is trying to tell the result of parental pressure on children and the outcomes that they will have on that family. That's one element that they're trying to tell in the story. And so they're not going to focus on... What?
Don't read that.
Oh, right.
They're not going to focus on, you know, if he's getting up and making them breakfast in the morning or whatever, which doesn't happen because his mom is doing it. His mom is basically doing this very, very traditional stay-at-home mom, like, you know, caretaker
That
role.
scene at the end.
Where she's basically like, I'm done with you.
Where she's like, I'm going back to my old life.
So now while you bring that up, I'm just gonna throw it in. That's kind of my favorite. I think that's my favorite scene.
It's in top 3 for me.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
It's good.
Well, what's for dinner?
I didn't make anything.
I didn't feel like making anything. I wasn't hungry. And here's the thing is, and this is where they do a really good job with Fritz playing that line of, he's not a total asshole. Because a total asshole, a total manipulator, a total abuser would have reprimanded her and, you know, like forced her to make something. But he just kind of accepts it.
Well, I think at that point, he probably realizes that he's lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's lost all of his sons, including the only one that's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife now.
And his wife has lost all of her sons
his wife
because of him.
Yeah.
She's probably seeing that to a certain extent now. It's like, you wanted this dream so badly, it came at the expense of our sons. I'm done. And they actually ended up getting divorced, like, a few years later. I don't remember how long after Carrie's death. But they're no longer married when Fritz dies.
Yeah.
So again, it is possible that there is this movie there is some truth. I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay, it wouldn't have been in the movie if the Von Erichs didn't allow it, because they were involved in the making of this movie to some extent. So there has to be some modicum of truth as to what kind of a person Fitz Von Erich was. You know, and obviously, like you said, we're not all going to shit on our parents, but that's the thing with these biopics is they are drama.
Is it biopic or is it biopic?
Biopic.
Okay.
It could be both.
Okay.
However
I
you're
think biopic is so that it is referred to as a biography
picture.
Versus biopic is kind of like myopic, which is like an eye-related term.
Okay.
So yeah. So again. So yeah. There's a line there, and we don't know where the line is skewed or crossed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
So my favorite was that scene at the end, where she's just like, I'm done.
I mistake. So they get divorced after Chris, who was not shown in
the youngest
dies, but before Carrie kills himself.
Oh.
Like,
okay, so
91, 92, 93.
Okay.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Alright, so out of 10.
7.5.
7.5. 7.5. I am at 7.9999.
Might as well just round it.
No, I'm specifically not rounding it.
Christ.
I want to give it an 8. I really do. Ric Flair refuses me to give it an 8. I can't give it an 8 based on Ric Flair alone. Because this movie has such powerful scenes that it deserves a fucking 8, but they ruined Ric Flair so bad that I can't give it an 8.
That's another reason why I can't give it an 8.
But 7.5 just seems low for me. To me.
Alright, so let's meet in the middle, 7.75.
I'm good there.
Okay.
7.75 I think would be good.
I'm very good at 7.
Because 7.999, it's like, come on, dude. Now you're really, you're dragging it out.
Specifically for Ric Flair. I
Okay.
hold grudges.
Yeah. Buy rent own? Buy rent stream. Is that what we're at?
Yeah, rent or stream.
Rent or stream. I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
This doesn't feel like a you have to own it. I mean, no. This is definitely not a you have to own it. Especially because of the triggering nature. This isn't a movie you. I mean, yeah, this isn't a movie you want to you
watch over and over
exactly.
and over again.
Yeah, unless you're a masochist who likes to traumatize himself.
Yeah, because it is
rough.
Well, there weren't any real like scenes or like dynamics that made you want to like come back to this movie over and over again. It's really good if you're trying to study either like the history of wrestling or its impact on individuals, or in filmmaking classes. I think this is a fantastic example of those things. Or like I mentioned, like communication styles and so forth, family dynamics and whatnot, have you not. But as far as purely for entertainment purposes, it would be a rough watch for me. Like I use the example of Inception, for example, right? It's my favorite movie that I never watch.
Interesting.
I love that movie and I will watch it, but it's really hard for me to get up and say I want to watch Inception. Once it's on in front of me, I'm fucking watching it. But to make the decision to actually turn it on is, I don't know why. It's something about it. Like it's gonna be a rough watch. I'm in for a rough watch. I know I'm gonna enjoy it, but I just can't bring my brain to get to that point yet. And this is one of those movies as well. Like, this is a great movie, but I don't see myself sitting down to actually watch it and enjoy it.
Right.
Outside of studying it.
Yeah.
Strange said his favorite scene is where where Kevin's on the phone and he said he can't affect his own kids, and he gives it a 7 3/4.
Okay.
All right.
So at this point,
I believe that's it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then that brings us to the final segment of our stream, which is the wheel itself.
The wheel itself,
And
which it is your.
It is my spin, which we will be watching tomorrow. What do you say?
Like if you're a wrestler, I'd say only just a reminder to take care of. So.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to say if you are a wrestler or a wrestling fan, it can definitely go into your wrestling movies collection. There's not very many wrestling movies, so yeah, I mean, another one for the collection. So, I guess with that being said, are we ready for the wheel?
Yes.
Yes, let's do this.
All right.
Kelly's ready for the wheel.
Here we go, guys. Wheel of morality, turn, turn, turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn. Wow, that kind of felt.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a short spin.
You might have a setting on there different.
Stop.
Maybe, but it's
stop. What did come up?
Do you want to spin again?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Again, it just felt it felt shorter.
It was.
Okay.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, you might have a setting off. If you have like
okay.
How many spins?
I have it on 3 times. It's on 3 times spin.
Yeah, mine's on like 7.
Oh.
I have it on like.
Well, I've never touched it.
Oh.
I'm gonna leave it.
No, the default is pretty short.
I'm gonna leave it. No, that's fine. I'm gonna leave it.
All right. So what is it?
We're gonna have fun tomorrow. So tomorrow we are going to be watching one of my favorite movies that I was actually excited to put on this list. It is a mixture of live action and animation.
Roger Rabbit?
No.
Cool World?
No.
Okay.
It is coming off of the success of 2 Chicago-based movies starring a still very young Macaulay Culkin, featuring the voice talents of Whoopi Goldberg and
Okay.
We are watching The Page Master.
That's interesting.
I am very excited for this movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm down.
All right, so get your library cards ready. Get ready to open some books because tomorrow we are going to travel between the worlds of horror, action adventure, and fantasy.
Right.
All right. With that being said, we are going to call it here. Thank you for joining us again, Juice.
Absolutely. I had a good time.
We will be back tomorrow to talk about the Page Master. Like, share, subscribe. We'll be going back to our normal streaming schedule very, very soon.
Actually, no. So, after,
well, you're going out of town.
Yeah. So after this week, we will be taking a 2-week break
from the
wheel.
From
we
the
will
wheel.
still be streaming on Wednesday, but we'll be.
Yeah, we will be taking a 2-week break from the wheel. As I am going out of town, I am going to Power Morphicon in Pasadena, California. And the reason I'm taking 2 weeks is because I am driving from my home in the southeast side of Chicago to Pasadena, California. So I'm going to have a fun little solo road trip.
Nice. Take pictures.
Oh, I plan to take plenty of pictures.
Stop at the Grand Canyon.
That's not on the way.
I don't think that's going to be on the
Is it
way.
on the way?
I'm taking.
Depends on which way he's going.
I'm taking 80.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll be passing it.
Well, take some pictures of
What's-
Yellowstone then.
What states are you going through? What states are you going through?
We'll talk about this after. So
Yeah,
like,
we'll
share,
talk about
subscribe. We love you guys. For No Car Entertainment, this is Matt.
Zarian.
And this is Juice. Sorry,
We're out.
Bye.